In this position, instead of capturing on c4, Black chooses to solidify the center by playing the pawn to c6. In this position, it is time for White to choose between fifth move options. In this position, White decides to defend the pawn on c4 by playing e3, but at the cost of blocking in the dark square bishop. Black usually responds with knight on b to d7, after which White will choose between queen c2 or bishop d3. In this position, White chose to activate the bishop. By playing the bishop to g5, White can follow up with e3, defending the pawn on c4. Black can respond with either d takes c4, which leads to the Botvinnik variation, an extremely sharp line, or can play h6, putting the question to the bishop, and that is the Moscow variation. However, there is a third main move option, and that is responding with knight on b to d7. This leads to the Cambridge Springs variation. After playing knight b to d7 and White plays e3, defending the pawn on c4. Black's sixth move options are bishop d6, queen a5, and bishop e7. Okay, now let's get to our game. This is part 2 of the match between Chicago Chess Blitzers and the Kentucky Chess Blitzers. This time, colors are switched. Kentucky's playing the white pieces, and Chicago Chess Blitzers playing the black pieces. And the game started off with d4, knight f6, knight f3, e6, c4, d5, knight c3, c6. And White chose bishop g5. Knight b to d7, e3. Common moves are bishop e7, bishop d6, and queen a5. The move played in the game was bishop to d6, bishop d3, h6, bishop h4, queen e7, a3, and now d takes c4. Bishop takes c4. And now e5. And now continuing, d5 was the move that was played in the game. Knight e4 suggested here. Instead of pushing the pawn to d5, play the knight to e4. With this move, the knight attacks the bishop on d6, double attacks the knight on f6 along with the bishop on h4, and the knight is pinned to the queen on e7. And the line goes e takes d4, knight takes d6 check, queen takes d6, queen takes d4, queen takes d4, knight takes d4, and knight e4. Knight f5, knight e5. With this move, the bishop on c8 is open. That diagonal is open and it directly attacks the knight on f5. At the same time, the knight on e5 attacks the bishop on c4 that is unprotected. f3. So the bishop on c4 is hanging. The knight on f5 is hanging. And the knight on e4 is under attack by the pawn on f3. Knight takes c4. F takes e4. Bishop takes f5. And e takes f5. Now this mass of trades leads to a bishop versus knight endgame. All right, let's take the moves back. So in the game, white played d5, and the game continued. Knight b6, bishop a2, bishop g4, and h3. Another move to consider, d takes c6, and the line goes b takes c6, bishop takes f6, g takes f6, h3, bishop d7, knight e4, bishop c7, queen c2, f5, knight c5, bishop c8, queen side castle, and king f8, king b1. And white is better here. So after h3, the game continued. Bishop h5. What happens if white takes the knight? Bishop takes f3. The line goes bishop takes f6. Bishop takes d1. Bishop takes e7. King takes e7. Rook takes d1. Rook ac8. dc6. Rook c6. Rook d3. f5. King side castle. e4. Knight d5. Check. Knight takes d5. Rook takes d5. g6. Rook on f to d1. Rook d8. g4. b6. Bishop b3. Rook c5. King g2. Bishop c7. Rook takes c5. B takes c5. Rook takes d8. Bishop takes d8. And you have an opposite color bishop's endgame. So after h3, the game continued. Bishop h5.
What happens if black takes the knight on f3?
Bishop takes f3. The line goes bishop takes f6. Bishop takes d1. Bishop takes e7. King takes e7. Rook takes d1. Rook ac8. dc6. Rook c6. Rook d3. f5. King side castle. e4. Knight d5. Check. Knight takes d5. Rook takes d5. g6. Rook on f to d1. Rook d8. g4. b6. Bishop b3. Rook c5. King g2. Bishop c7. Rook takes c5. B takes c5. Rook takes d8. Bishop takes d8. And you have an opposite color bishop's endgame. So instead of taking the knight, the move that was played in the game, bishop h5, and the game continued. g4, bishop g6, d takes c6, b takes c6, and queen b3. Another move to consider here is bishop b1. Bishop takes b1, queen takes b1, rook b8, queen f5, knight on b to d5, and knight e4. And white is better. Taking the moves back. In the game, the move that was played was queen b3. And the game continued. King side castle, rook d1, rook b8, a to b8, rook d2, knight on b to d5, and knight takes d5. C takes d5, queen d1, d4, e takes d4 was played. Another move to consider castle king side. And now d3, knight e1, e4, f4, rook on f to c8, and knight g2. In the game, white captured on d4, and the game continued. E takes d4, and rook e2 was a bad blunder, a big blunder. Simply, the king could have stepped to f1. Bishop e4, king g2, rook b6, b4, g5, bishop g3, rook c8, and bishop takes d6. But in the game, white played the rook to e2, and the game continued. Queen b7, kingside castle. I don't think white can save the game at this point, but even better than castling was playing the rook to d2, and the queen holds the knight on f3 temporarily. I think white is going to lose material here regardless. For instance, bishop e4, castle, bishop takes f3, queen c2. Alright, taking the moves back. White castled. Queen takes f3, bishop takes f6, queen takes h3, bishop e5, queen takes g4 check, king h1, bishop e4 check, followed by f3, and after bishop takes, rook takes f3, queen takes f3, check, king g1, and after bishop takes e5, white resigned. That is all I have for now. Thank you for watching. Make sure you write these moves down, and you can go over these lines later. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Stay tuned for my next video.